This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back. Our next guest has spent decades studying the way we think, the human mind. What's going on there? There's a lot going on. It's kind of fascinating because there's new things discovered all the time about the way we operate, the way we act, how it ties back to our childhood. We're going to look at the lens in which he sees the world. Sees it a little bit differently, and that's part of that understanding as a life coach, a psychotherapist, a poet, and so much more. Great to have him back here with us. He is Jeffrey Starbuck on the program. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here again to have an opportunity to talk and share.
I'm intrigued about the way you view the world. I really am. You've been around the world. You've been doing this for a long time in terms of studying the human mind. How would you, just briefly starting here, what is the lens you look at life?
I don't know if I can in a single sentence or idea characterize it. It's well, I use the word holistic, but I don't know if that would have much meaning to a lot of people in terms of the world is a seamless web. The world is completely interconnected, and it has happened that we human beings have tended toward seeing the world as separate things, separate objects, sort of that kind of thing. I actually have a quote here that I'd like to mention. Gregory Bateson, and this expresses part of what I'm addressing here. The major problems in the world are the results of the difference between how nature works and how people think. Now, he said that he's not alive anymore, but he said that, I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago. But the major problems in the world are the results of the difference between how nature works and how people think. And that's just part of what I would offer.
Would you say that much of what pilots us is actually nature?
Yes. Yeah, and that depends partially on how we define what nature is, and of course even what we are, So, but yes, because we are nature. Actually, we emerge out of nature. And herein lies maybe a difficulty or a rub, if you will, that we have a tendency to think we're separate from nature, apart from it, independent of it, which is a very funny, kind of silly idea, because we're breathing air every moment of this podcast and before this podcast, and we're completely dependent upon the atmosphere. We take in food from outside, and we, and so on and so forth, and nature is what drives us, because we have, our brain is a function, a manifestation of nature, and our psychology, in a sense, it in certain ways follows natural laws or ways of being. So
I had that epiphany a few years ago, where everything we have, everything we rely on, ultimately goes back to the earth, i.e., the dirt. When you think about it, the semiconductors and all the equipment we use, where does that come from? It's silicon. It comes from the earth. When you think of our food, obviously, when you think of the buildings that we live in and work in, ultimately goes right back to the earth. Right. And not to digress too much here, but we're beating on the earth. We're beating on this thing that supported us since the beginning of time and still does. And yes, the other epiphany for me was quote unquote getting back into nature.
Mhm.
Why does that support us? Why does it feel so good? Why do we need to be grounded in order to feel back to nature again?
That's
It's all
right.
right there.
That's right. And it's very important it's very important for us to connect with nature.
Mm,
And of course we do that in ways without even necessarily knowing it or labeling it as such. I mean, we connect with what is nature? Water is nature. And people go swimming and they go to pools and so on and so forth and they swim in water and that's they're in nature.
mm, mm, mm.
That
Yeah, where's the pool located? Outside,
yeah,
near nature.
yes, yeah, and yeah, John Muir, the naturalist who was instrumental in helping create national parks, for instance, he once said something like, if you take anything by itself, and he was referring to things in nature, like if you grab like a bush and you start pulling it, everything else in the universe will come with it. Now, that's a certain kind of statement. You have to understand that symbolically, because if you pull a bush, you'll be able to successfully pull the roots out of the ground. But we're not talking about just that. We're talking about everything is connected, and the
Mm.
idea that there's not separation. There's inclusiveness. There's seamlessness. Uh, the Yeah.
What is, and I mean this question, what's the secret of life?
The secret of life is to, I'm going to have to say several sentences at least.
Sure, sure.
The secret of life is to understand what we are. And that means understanding everything that we're a part of, understanding nature, understanding the world. And understanding here is we have to remember that understanding is not just agreeing with. Scientists understand they look at things and you can examine something that you can examine something that you don't want to have any part of, or you can understand the workings of a, a, a psychotic killer, but that doesn't mean you agree with it or want it to occur. But so it's understanding and being, but it's more than that. It's being in cooperating with, because when we fully understand something, we and perceive our connectedness with all things, there's the chance for attunement, for harmony, for yeah, and for everything else to come, love and wisdom, uh, so that and everything is in a sense, here, Rumi, the Sufi um, poet, said, and of course he didn't speak or write in English, so he's been translated, and that's we're dependent upon that. But he said it's not so much that we are a drop in the ocean; it's that we are the ocean in a drop. It's not so much that we are a drop in the ocean. We are the ocean in a drop.
Got to process that one.
Yeah.
We are the ocean in a drop. Well, it's funny. I thought you were going here. I believe it was Sir Isaac Newton said, what we know is a drop. What we don't know is an ocean.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes.
Wow.
And part of what was the original question was
The
what's
secret of
the
life.
secret of life is being recognizing that what Isaac Newton said and Rumi and being at peace with it. not fighting, not pushing against it, understanding what it means, and that's okay. That's how it is. So there are ways in which um, so it's very much about I would call it harmonizing, and that's what you see in when somebody groups of people are doing Tai Chi or doing certain sorts of Qigong practice or other kinds of dance. They're in a way harmonizing, and they talk about harmonizing with nature, and there are expressions like that, and harmonizing with the elements, with water and the wind and so on. And so being in harmony, in sync with, not a good way to be in sync with lightning is to not be anywhere near where it strikes. Because a lightning bolt is a very good thing not to directly experience, but we can because that's the final experience you have, you know. But we can appreciate what lightning is and understand it, and we can have lightning rods and buildings, and to protect us and so on and so forth.
But how can we be in harmony with lightning?
By understanding it.
By understanding it.
Uh,
Okay.
so this is partially about the semantics and the definition of words here. Yeah. Yes, exactly. You want to be in sync with um, alligators by not being near where they are, and so on and so forth. We and that's what we human beings have done, and this is both the success of us, if you will, but also the way in which we by not accepting, I guess, not accepting certain limits, um, that we can get ourselves into trouble. That we can't because you can only if we extract things from the earth. There's the limit of certain kinds of things, and they're in certain places, but it's so all of it is, we could say, harmony. It's being in sync with, it is being accepting the accepting limitation in terms of what I mean by that.
Isn't it interesting when we think about lightning that what's lightning trying to do? When it strikes, what's it doing?
It's equalizing electricity, electrons, charge.
But what's the ultimate goal? Lightning is trying to be grounded.
Yes.
Aren't we all?
Mhm.
It's when you look at it that way, it wants to be grounded.
Mhm.
Wouldn't you say that that's a goal for all of us?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Being grounded, because what is being grounded? It's being, and that is, I agree, that's an interesting phrase. That's a very apt phrase, and we use it all the time.
Mm.
And yet we, in many ways, and we're generalizing here, in too many ways, I say we aren't grounded. Um, but we're trying to be grounded. But being grounded is being harmonized. It's being in sync with. It is being connected to everything. We, yeah, we have to. What we eat has to be a certain way. We you don't want to eat certain things, and so yeah. So
Would you say, Jeffrey, that, or do you believe that we are spiritual beings in just a human container, not the other
sure.
way around?
Sure. And yes, I'm very familiar with that expression and that phrase, and yes, that would be uh, that's how I would say it. I, looking at one of the things I really am interested in, and is language, and what I mean by that is even I only speak one language, but I can I know a smattering of certain words in Sanskrit, for instance, and Tibetan. But seeing the way in which language conditions us, we live inside of a world of language. And
Mm.
we don't recognize that, and it's useful. And again, it's useful to recognize ways in which we're limited, and some of those ways we don't have to be in the same way. Like, yeah, but but all of the things we're talking about now are definitions, and the way that the words are defined. Um, Conditions everything. And even in this conversation, um, we have to understand, like you and I have to understand how we are using a particular phrase or a particular meaning and so on like that. Uh, you know.
And a lot of times I feel the meanings get lost because many times we're on autopilot. We just say these things. We're not even sure many times why we're saying them, what they actually truly mean. We're just saying them, like, got to get back into nature. All right, got an idea what that means, but what does it really mean when somebody says that? And that can come from their lens, however you want to internalize it or interpret it,
Mhm.
what that ultimately means to somebody.
Yeah, yeah. That makes me think of I had a client once who liked to hunt and to fish and outdoor activities, and
Hmm.
he described being sitting in a tree in the winter, for a long time. And he was, waiting for a deer to come, and he was, bored. But I realized, and I interpreted this to him, and it doesn't it doesn't matter. It's not important for him to understand what my point, but he was in fact harmonizing with nature when he was doing that. He was
Yes.
he was by himself. He was being silent. He was listening and looking and feeling.
Mm.
And he was in a sense, it was a type of meditation that he was doing. That's me reframing it.
I totally have it, and you know, put the hunting aside. Not something I would do, but I don't judge anyone. That's your thing. I'm envious of him sitting in that tree. They call them tree stands. They build them up in trees, and
Right.
where they observe and wait. In my journey, I don't think I would have said this, 5 years ago or even five before that. How wonderful being able to sit in silence
Hmm.
and just, for whatever the purposes, to just be one with nature,
Hmm.
the thinking, the clarity. I believe that we don't do that enough. And I'm in a men's group, and one man, and we support each other. We do community service and all that. And one man was talking about, some challenges he had. He's very strong-willed. Um, just, he's trying to figure it all out. And we all said to him about the same time, have you ever sat in silence? Have you ever just been quiet by yourself for a period of time? He thought about it. And he says, no, I never did that. And we all said, you need to do that immediately. Get that done. Uh,
Yeah.
because we don't. And we don't go within. Maybe some of us don't because we're afraid to,
Hmm.
confront ourselves or hear us talk to ourselves in that
Hmm.
silence without any other diversions or anything around, just peace and quiet, literally. Um, I would imagine you've done that, being somebody who meditates and such, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking when you were talking that uh, when somebody is afraid of doing that, in a sense, what they're afraid of doing, things, how do I say it? Things equalize over time, and that in the mind which is out of balance will emerge if you sit quietly, and it is trying to be sort of like this, the same as a lightning strike. It is trying to equalize itself. It is trying to be return into balance. So that it's looked at this way, even our so-called a Yiddish phrase which I love is mishigas, and one's mishigas, and uh, one's mishigas, and for me that's not a negative thing. It's playful, but one's mishigas is trying to be become balanced, become harmonized, homeostasis, and all of nature is in a sense always trying to do that,
Hmm.
to sort of stay in balance. And when we, particularly when we like the movements of Tai Chi are about copying nature, and when you do that, when you do these kind of slow movements, you're mimicking nature, or you're becoming one with nature, and you can have a feeling of the great silence within, the vast regions sort of inside the
Do you think, even based on what you just said, that one of the secrets to life is balance?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because when one thing in your life is out of balance, it sets the other things out of balance as well. Um, Maybe easier said than done to get things in balance in your life.
Y- yes. Yes, and yes, but I would say that the phrase you said, easier said than done," and I certainly I know that, and I'm familiar with that and that idea. And it's important because some people, listeners, might be, questioning that, and saying, what easier said than done. What we're talking, some of the things we're talking about, but anything that is worthwhile doing, in one sense, is easier said than done. And there are people listening who have completed, written a dissertation, for instance. And that was easier said than done, but they did it. There are people who have learned, a language, but they did it. They applied their energy, their attention in a certain direction. And, like a complex jigsaw puzzle, you can't put it all together in 4 minutes. And that's okay. That's not a problem. Part of the thing with the jigsaw, see, a jigsaw puzzle is in a sense a meditative experience. You're focusing the attention. And it's a way of seeking to return to balance. It's a way of of experiencing the mind, the coming to a state of some type of balance. So, and we could use various words as synonyms or as part of that process. To become, we when you sit in a tree as a hunter, or when you're fishing and you're waiting, you're there's a simplicity happening. And your attention
Hmm.
is focused. Your attention is focused, and when we decide to focus our attention, other thoughts come up. All the things that are unlike that focus sort of rise to the surface, but they're doing that as a part that's the part of the seeking of balance, or experiencing a balance.
I believe, thank you for that. I see it more as many of us don't realize the true beauty and what is gained from sitting in silence. I actually know somebody who wrote a couple of books, and it's called Sitting in Silence. And you know what the books contain? They contain different park benches, pictures of places this woman went where
Mhm.
she sat in silence and just loved the vibe, the structure, the architecture of these benches, and how energetically it's so wonderful, or was for her. And she's trying to, wants to promote, hey, just go out and sit in silence. It's a wonderful thing. You said a few things, and we're out of time, but I'm wondering if maybe we get together in the future. It sounds like we're talking about where your attention is going and what it's doing. Call it manifesting.
Yes.
I would love to dig into that next time we get together and your thoughts on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good progression. I
Very
agree.
excited. Very excited to get
Yeah.
pick your brain. I'll use another cliche on that one.
Absolutely.
Jeffrey, what's the best way to connect with you if somebody's looking for maybe a virtual session with you? How do we do that?
Through the website, my website, jeffreystarbuck.com, JEFFREY, STARBUCK, one continuous word, at gmail.com. No, I'm sorry, Jeffrey Starbuck,
.com.
.com. Yes.
And Jeffrey Starbuck 18, is it? At Gmail?
Yes. Well, actually, it's that I have a couple, but it's Jeff Starbuck, JEFFSTARBUCK. It's Jeff Starbuck 18. Yes, at gmail.com. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you know what? My apologies. I see that now on my screen. I want to say Jeffrey, but it's Jeff Starbuck 18 at gmail.com.
Right.
Wonderful talking with you today.
Yes.
Just really bringing clear things that I wondered about, and even in fostering how wonderful it is to get into nature, to be silent, and hearing it through your lens. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was fun. It was fun and exploring like this. And
absolutely. And manifestation sometime in the future. We'll manifest that now.
Good. We'll go.
All right. We'll catch up then. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.